Next is Personnel Committee, and we have 5 items on the agenda this evening. The first is the Raptor volunteer module. Mrs. McHale, would you like to?
Certainly.
Thank you.
So the Raptor volunteer module that we're recommending to the board is basically a volunteer collection site. It will be another layer of security in collecting volunteer clearances. They'll all be stored on the Raptor system. When a volunteer is approved by the administration office, they'll then be placed in the module. When they swipe in at a certain building, they'll receive a printout badge that will say volunteer. It will be date stamped, so they can only use it for that volunteer day. When they come through each time, they'll also be run through the screening process, the same as any other individual entering the building as a visitor that's swiping their license through the Raptor system. To add this module, as you see, it's $1,600, and we do have that money in our human resource budget that we could allocate toward this system. So this was brought to you by the IT department, and we feel it's going to enhance, again, our volunteer clearance collection site. It'll make it easier, and it layers that, it gives that other layer of security every time they swipe in, and they'll be identified.
There's no attachment.
There was no attachment?
No, not for that.
No.
Hopefully that's the only one.
Yeah, the other ones have attachments, but that one doesn't. You're referencing as we can see and we can't see, so share what we're supposed to see.
Okay, so basically the attachment was just the invoice from Raptor, and I'll be sure to send that to all of you tomorrow. And it just lists the items that are necessary for this module to work. And again, the total is $1,600. It's a one-time fee. The only other fee that would be incurred from year to year are the rolls of badges or maintenance on the actual Raptor system when you're swiping in at the individual buildings.
And so they swipe in with they show their license the same way that anybody, so it would come up then that they are an approved volunteer.
Yes, so they're still going to go through the volunteer process that they do now, and they'll be vetted by the Human Resource Department. And once they are cleared, they're put into this system now so that they can be identified at any one of the 11 district buildings or district office where there's a Raptor by just swiping their license.
And so what happens if they say, I'm here to volunteer, and then it doesn't come up with volunteer on their badge?
Then as anyone else showing up that's stating that they're an approved volunteer, they wouldn't be allowed to volunteer.
But people who are coming in for a school event that's open to the public, they can still come in.
Okay, right, so that's going to run through the visitor part of the Raptor system that's currently in operation. This is just an addition to that.
Okay.
Yeah, it will specifically, when they swipe their badge, it'll come up that they're an approved volunteer. I mean, their license.
Okay. And it's only during school hours, right? The system will only be running during school hours.
No, if they come in during the evening and the Raptor system is up and the schools are collecting the volunteers or the visitors, they can certainly swipe through. It's also, just to add, it's also going to help when there are events where we have a large group of volunteers that need to be receive badges ahead of time. We can do that through any one of these Raptor systems. So we could get like 4 or 5 of these together and run 100 badges for volunteers if that were ever necessary and predate them. So today's September 14th. If we needed 100 volunteers for September 16th, they could come in ahead of time and run those badges. And then every one of those individuals is cleared, they have a badge, states that they're volunteering only on that date. So it's a nice system that I think will enhance our volunteer procedures.
So, I have a question. So, let me understand you right. This is an electronic storage of all of the volunteer documents that we're going to collect the volunteer documents and store it in Raptor. And the second piece of that is, I know the Raptor system here at the high school is in the office, which is not open at night when we have events.
Right, so again, it would only be utilized if it's open at night for events, if there's someone manning the Raptor system that's presently there. But if they did need to volunteer at a time when the office was not open, again, we could have those badges pre-printed. It is not a storage area for all of the clearances. The hard copies would still be kept in district office.
Okay. Right. So any organization that's going to run a nighttime event, whether it be a sporting event with volunteers or any swim meet with volunteers, those volunteers are going to have to come up here in advance of the event to get a badge?
Right now, they don't. Mr. Loeffler has $5,985 to allocate to individuals on his staff who have obtained a certification in something like a pesticide management or a chemical treatment certification. And they are, each unit has a certain amount of money attached to it, so then he goes and assigns the number of units to each individual who's attained these certifications. And this is a yearly housekeeping item that is tied to the collective bargaining agreement and is budgeted on an annual basis.
And Mr. Loeffler, next date on these certifications?
Yes, I verified with Mr. Loeffler that he does keep an update on the certifications, and then he sends those up to the Human Resource Office to be included in their personnel file as well.
The fourth item is a Source for Teachers amendment, contract amendment for the 16-17 school year.
Okay, so for this year, we're recommending again the substitute teacher rates, and we had just a few changes from last year. Moving forward to the board, if the board is agreeable to moving this forward, I'd like to omit the principal full day and half day rates that are listed, only because as we've had to engage the services of administration over the past year, we've utilized the Mission 1 services through the Bucks County Intermediate Unit, who has provided that at a discounted rate. So we found it was better going through Bucks County for administrative services rather than directly engaging through Source for Teachers. So I would like to omit that in the final draft. The teacher full day rate I have listed at $100 per day. The previous addendum last year was $90 for the first 20 days and then $100 thereafter upon surveying all of the schools in Bucks County. It appears that they're now all moving toward this $100 rate. It's like 95 and upwards, but the majority is at a straight $100. So we wanted to be competitive in that area. There's no change to the retiree rate, and the long-term teacher rate I'll be also adjusting to read short-term teacher rate. And there is no change in that from the previous year as well. The building-based substitute is your permanent substitutes that we had placed the last 2 years. That would be an individual that would come in every day and be assigned where necessary in that building. Last year we had 3 at the high school, 1 at each middle school, and 3 that were allocated amongst the 7 elementary schools. This year we're asking the board to approve an additional 2 building-based substitutes to cover the elementaries. We had a shortage in the elementary schools last year, so we're asking for 5. So that would bring your building-based substitutes from 9 to 11 this year. The teaching assistants, we had a change there that we're recommending. There were 3 levels, and we eliminated the top and bottom level and went with the $85 a day rate, which again is comparable to all of the neighboring districts that were surveyed. The clerical, playground, lunch monitor, and custodian remain the same. Again, they're comparable to the other school districts as well. The secretary rates 1 through 3 are actually from the collective bargaining agreement. That is when a 900-hour clerk substitutes for one of our secretaries in the same building. And in their collective bargaining agreement, they are then entitled to their daily rate. Bus aides is new this year. Mr. Geiger has asked that we engage substitute bus aides through Source for Teachers. He was having a little bit of difficulty obtaining enough substitutes, so when in need, he can also utilize the Source for Teachers bus aides, and that rate mirrors the CBA as well for the starting rate for bus aides. Are there any questions?
I have a question. Shouldn't we leave, or would it do any harm to leave in the principal and assistant principal rates? Even if we don't use them, but in the chance that we might need them if we can't get somebody through the IU, and then we don't have any rates approved?
No, you're right. It's not really anything that's going to harm us. Those are not competitive rates though, so we probably wouldn't go there. Another odd thing, Source for Teachers and Mission 1 are one and the same, but their Mission 1 part of their company feeds administrative substitutes and paraprofessionals, which is why BCIU has a specific contract with Mission 1, because then
So they're actually, when we go through BCIU, they're using a company?
they're
also?
using Mission 1, which is a subsidiary of Source for Teachers.
Oh, and it's a different rate. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Have we used all these categories, substitutes from all categories, or just some of them?
We've used all these categories. Mhm.
Any other questions? And last item is the revised job description for the transportation director.
The revised job description adds the word preferred to the educational requirement, and we're doing that to open up the position to a larger pool of candidates. It's an industry-specific specialized position. There is not a large pool of candidates out there to fill this position, so we wanted to make it a little more attractive to individuals that would have the experience but possibly not hold the bachelor's level degree. So although the bachelor's level was important, the experience in that industry we felt was important as well.
Any questions? Okay, then move all 5 to the board meeting, and you'll have the Raptor forwarded on module. Thank you. So then, I'll allow questions also. Yes? Please state your name and municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ragomo. Diane Herring, Hilltown Township. As it relates to Raptor, this is something I have asked the board about for close to a year and a half now. So I'm exceptionally pleased to see that we are moving forward in this direction. However, I believe Mrs. Yorley and Mr. Kraus brought up the primary purpose and concern for my question this entire time. If you do not have a mechanism by which you are giving people access to tell the rest of the world that they are an approved volunteer after hours, you are failing to meet the full need. Because the problem is not necessarily just in Monday through Friday, 8 to 3 in the afternoon, when you have a building open and these people are walking around volunteer. What you need to give is a volunteer badge to people that have access, who have approved and done everything, so that when they are not even just here, but they are the chaperone outside of this district, they have some sort of recognizable district-issued badge that also accompanies them. So that way, the issues that they could potentially encounter outside of the district, they don't run into. Because every district's kind of doing this. They're all looking for a way to verify that somebody who's with a group is supposed to be there approved, just the same as I would hope we would want our people to look for somebody standing on the sidelines of another team up on the turf to know that they are not just the coach, or they're the team manager, or they're approved chaperone. You'd want to have some sort of validation that they're on your campus as well, right down in the field with the kids. So I would really like to see if we could come up with, unlike what you're talking about, printing them in advance, but printing them where maybe even making it a regular badge, like we give to employees if they've done everything they're supposed to do, and you validated their clearances, even if you just issue them for 3-month periods at a time, that somebody has a permanent ID, that so then when they're off campus as much as they're on campus, as much as they're here at nights or on weekends, not just everybody else, but the kids know who's approved volunteers. You want the kids to be looking for that person in the room that has a badge that says volunteer if they have a problem. You don't want them just running up to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Personnel's adjourned.